Okay, I have gotten a few questions. I've had people asking me when I'm out on the range talking about it. And I've seen some buzz online about the Triggertech ACE trigger system that they've developed for Glock. So I want to talk a little bit about this part of it. The dingus thing is the big issue. Okay, so on a standard Glock trigger, let me grab one of my Glocks here. Okay, show you clear. Okay, all clean. All right, on a standard Glock trigger, they've got the trigger safety, dingus, whatever you want to call this thing, right? This is designed so that when you have to actually put your finger on the trigger in order to pull the trigger in order for that to actuate back. Okay, all they've done is you can see on the back of the trigger right here in front of my finger, there's a little shelf that moves out of the way when you pull. Let me see if I can get where you can see that. See that shelf moving? Okay. If I don't push on that dingus, when the trigger comes back, it can't go any further just because of the simple thing that there's a simple principle that there's a plastic block keeping it from the trigger from moving backwards in the trigger guard there. That's all it is, right? So it's a very simple spring-loaded piece of plastic that when you go to push back, it stops unless, there you go, you can see it stopping there, unless you pull the dingus as well, and then it's able to go all the way back. Okay? That's it. That is the standard Glock trigger safety, or dingus, right there. Okay? Can't be pulled on the side without pushing that back. It stops it. Pull the trigger, and it's allowed to go through. That's it. That's all that safety is. Okay. I'm going to interrupt this for just a moment to show you this picture. This is the trigger off of a Canik TP9, the Canik Rival, the TTI Combat. All of those triggers on those Caniks have the same basic layout here. You can see what they've done is they've made that trigger safety, or that dingus, the full width of the trigger. Instead of it just being a tiny little, tongue that sits in the middle of the trigger, the entire face of the trigger is one flat trigger safety. I want you to keep that in mind as we look at what they've done to innovate that even further on the Triggertech ACE trigger system. Okay. On the new ACE trigger system that Triggertech has developed, everyone's screaming, oh, they got rid of this trigger safety. How could they do such a thing? I've even seen USPSA buzz about it. They didn't. They simply changed the design of how it functions. No, there's no longer a dingus in the center of the trigger. You have a full flat face against which you are pulling, okay? That's fine. The issue is what they've done, okay, is they have made this entire plastic piece the dingus. It's actually a bigger, wider, more effective safety, if you want to look at it that way, because it's being actuated there. Now, let me show you what they did. The trigger itself, technically and functionally, is in here. Well, let me get a pointer here. It's difficult to see with this light. Let me see if I can get a better angle. But there's a metal trigger here inside of this housing. This housing is the safety. It's the trigger safety. And there is a shelf on that trigger safety right there. Okay. So let me see. There we go. That's a pretty decent angle where you can see it. Let me see if I can get it to focus. But right there inside that, underneath that housing, is the trigger. Okay. All this thing is designed to do is keep it from, like, if you drop the gun or something like that, the trigger can't move. You can't, that's the whole game, right? Is just keep that from going backwards so the trigger can't be actuated without pulling the trigger with your finger. Okay, so there's the wall. If I am to reach in here and get a hold of that metal trigger and pull, that trigger, whoops, I'm focusing on the wrong place. There we go. Let me see if I can get this to focus properly. I'm pulling and I'm meeting resistance. That trigger cannot be pulled. I wish I could get you guys a better view. There, maybe you can see that. I'm behind that metal trigger and I'm pulling hard. It doesn't go anywhere. I cannot pull the trigger on this gun because
The trigger safety, this shelf here has, or this housing here has a shelf, just like the dingus on a regular Glock. It's the same principle. Okay, so there's a shelf right there that won't allow the trigger to go back any further. So when I go to pull the actual trigger in here, I am unable to do that. However, see if I can get it to focus. I'm going to put the pressure on that trigger, okay, and then just apply pressure to the housing. There it goes. Okay, so in order for the trigger to be pulled, you still have to overcome this safety. It's the same principle, okay? All they did was make it so it's not a funky thing sticking out that looks weird. They just made it appear to be a flat-faced trigger that your finger very comfortably goes around. Safety overcome, trigger pull. Right down in there, you can see that safety. It's in place. That trigger can't come back unless I rotate that housing up and out of the way. Right here, right there. That rotates up out of the way, trigger pulls. So, did they eliminate the trigger safety? No. Did they simplify the design and make it so that it's a much more comfortable shooting experience? Yes, they did. Now, I've got this one set up on a very, very light pull. This one is set. I dialed it to the trigger pull as low as I could because I want to do some testing and firing and see if maybe I want to make this my handgun for 2-gun competition. This one right now is at 3 pounds. Let me pull that one more time. That's rating higher than it was earlier. Yep, right at 3 pounds. So I've got that set as a 3-pound trigger. It feels very light. Oh, sorry, I'm not on the camera. There we go. Comes back. That's the play, and that play is just the plastic housing, the dingus, so to speak, coming back to rest against the metal trigger. There's a solid wall and a break. There we go. It's a different design. It's very innovative. You can adjust the trigger pull poundage just with a very simple set screw that's inside in the trigger back here. It's a very simple thing to do to adjust that to your feel and where you're comfortable and what makes you the most accurate. And heck of a lot safer than a 320. All right, that's it, everybody. Thanks for stopping by.